call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 65 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Accounts. Pursuant to Standing Order 1083G, the committee is meeting today to continue its study of Report 5, Chronic Homelessness, of Reports 5 to 8 of the Auditor General of Canada, referred to the committee on November 15, 2022.
Honourable Ahmed Hussein, Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion. Thank you for being here today, Minister, and accepting our invitation along with your colleagues, who I'll just introduce briefly here. From the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, Nadine Leblanc, Senior Vice President Policy. Hello. Office of Infrastructure of Canada, Kelly McGillis, Deputy Minister. Hello. Chris Johnson, Director General, Homelessness Policy Directorate. So, Mr. Minister, I believe you know the drill. You have opening comments of 5 minutes, please. The floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le
Thank you very much.
A safe and affordable place to call home. But as we've seen in communities across our country, far too many Canadians face the daily unacceptable reality of experiencing homelessness. Homelessness affects every community in Canada. It is a grim reality for far too many Canadians. It preys on the most vulnerable amongst us, casting a shadow over their lives. L'itinérance a un impact sur chacun.
Homelessness, ultimately, has an impact on all of us. It leaves an enduring mark on all our communities. As a government, we have recognized this, and we have heeded the call to action.
The urgency of the matter has responded through Reaching Home, Canada's homelessness strategy. Launched in 2019, the program committed $2.2 billion to address homelessness across the country. It has now grown to almost $4 billion in funding. Budgets 2021 and 2022 strengthened this initiative to further empower communities so that they can better address the needs of individuals and families experiencing homelessness. Vers un chez soi est le symbole.
Reaching Home is the embodiment of hope, a community-based program that empowers urban, Indigenous, rural, and remote communities to help them address local homelessness needs.
It supports communities in establishing coordinated access and integrated systems-based approach that prioritizes assistance for those in greatest need to ensure that they find suitable housing and comprehensive services. The impact of Reaching Home is tangible, felt within our communities every day. In just the first 3 years, Reaching Home has funded over 5,000 projects across the country, helping to place more than 46,000 people experiencing homelessness in permanent housing. Moreover, over 87,000 people in need benefited from prevention and shelter diversion services through the program's support. And as part of our government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Reaching Home with increased funding created over 26,000 temporary accommodation spaces. These spaces provided crucial shelter for Canadians, offering them a lifeline during a time of social distancing. In total, more than 214,000 temporary accommodation placements were made to support individuals in need when it was needed the most. That is the impact Reaching Home is having across the country. It is playing a key role to support our national housing strategy's target of reducing chronic homelessness by 50% by 2027, and we've committed further to ending chronic homelessness by 2030. This is the goal that is at the heart of the national housing strategy, a bold 10-year plan which is backed by an $82 billion investment to ensure more people in Canada have a safe and affordable place to call home. The National Housing Strategy is built on strong partnership between the Government of Canada, provinces and territories, and continuous engagement with partners including municipalities, Indigenous governments, the private sector, and non-profit organizations. Cette stratégie est le programme fédéral.
This strategy is the largest, most ambitious federal housing program in Canada's history and strives to create livable communities for families and individuals. It's a comprehensive approach to addressing housing needs head-on.
The NHS supports the creation of new affordable homes and purposely built rental homes, preserves and repairs and revitalizes community housing, while also committing funding to the needs of vulnerable populations. To address the overrepresentation of Indigenous peoples among those experiencing homelessness, Reaching Home has invested $370 million since 2019 to Indigenous-led and culturally relevant programs and services. This includes funding for 37 urban, rural, and remote communities under the Indigenous Homelessness Stream. It also includes funding for distinctions-based approaches co-developed with national indigenous organizations and modern treaty holders to address the specific needs of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit across the country. And the success of the National Housing Strategy hinges upon the strength of our partnerships, and it is continuously informed by extensive consultations with Canadians from all walks of life, especially those with lived experience of housing need. The Government of Canada is investing $18.1 million over 3 years to conduct action research on chronic homelessness. We stand in support of participating communities in the effort to identify and document persistent barriers to preventing and reducing chronic homelessness.
In addition, we are piloting innovative potential approaches that address these barriers head-on. The research findings obtained will help us to develop strategies and identify pathways to ending chronic homelessness in communities across Canada.
This does not discriminate. It affects people from all walks of life, whether they are seniors, youth, individuals with disabilities, veterans, and families. No one should face the reality of being without a home. And according to Census 2021, there was an estimated 460,000 Canadian veterans with over 2,500 experiencing homelessness. That's why last month, Infrastructure Canada and Veterans Affairs Canada jointly announced the launch of the new Veteran Homelessness Program. This $79.1 million program is about providing veterans with rent supports, rental supplements, and wraparound services that meet their particular needs. And it is also about building capacity for veteran serving organizations so that they can engage in research on veteran homelessness to deepen our understanding of this issue and improve our programs and services. We will bring an end to chronic homelessness in Canada, Mr. Chair. It will end through programs like the National Housing Strategy and Reaching Home, through initiatives like the Veteran Homelessness Program, and through dedicated service research and support to identify and address the root causes of homelessness. And most importantly, it'll end through strong partnerships. We can't do it alone. We have to continue to work with other levels of government, Indigenous organizations, and communities across the country. Avec nos partenaires, nous amènons.
Together with our partners, we are improving housing outcomes and reducing homelessness for Canada's vulnerable populations.
Affirmed the Government of Canada's commitment to the things that matter most to Canadians, like making housing more affordable, fighting climate change, and creating good, well-paying jobs. Through these impactful programs and the strong partnerships that I just spoke about, we will continue to make housing more affordable and end chronic homelessness in Canada. We are committed to addressing homelessness, and our commitment is steadfast and unwavering. Everyone deserves a place to call home, a place to feel safe and secure, and every Canadian deserves a place to build a better life. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Turning now to the official opposition, Mr. McCall, you have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thanks, Minister. Thanks for joining us, and well done on your French. Much better than mine. I'm going to assume that you've read the Auditor General report. It's I can't think of a better word than perhaps damning. I'm just wondering what immediate steps you're taking to address this. I'm going to go over some of the things here from findings. Infrastructure, employment, ESDC, mortgage housing, do not know whether their efforts improved housing outcomes for people experiencing homelessness. So you've mentioned all this money spent, you do in the House all the time, and the AG says the departments can't even say if you're helping anyone. As a lead for Reaching Home that you've talked about a lot here today, says again, do not know whether chronic homelessness and homelessness has increased or decreased since 2019. CMHC as a lead for national housing strategy, says they do not know who is benefiting from their initiatives. And then we have CMHC pointing fingers saying that it should be infrastructure say, well, we're not accountable, someone else is. Like, this is an absolute mess, and I appreciate, you know, the sentiment of what you're trying to say, but it doesn't match reality. You've talked about we've done this, we've done this, we've done this. We know housing prices in Canada have doubled. Homelessness in Edmonton is through the roof, even though we have relatively stable housing prices. You've claimed you're doing this, this, and this, but the results are different. The Auditor General, again, says your departments don't know if you're actually helping anyone. So why are we pushing out all this money and we don't even know if we're getting results? And when we actually look what's actually happening out in Canada, we see rising homelessness, unaffordable rent, unaffordable mortgages. So I'm looking at what, and I'd like to give you the benefit of the doubt, but it just, all it comes back to is failure. How are we going to fix this, and what are we going to do to actually get results?
So I think what I get from that monologue is a conflating of a number of things. You're mixing homelessness with housing prices, and we don't.
I'm sorry, high housing prices aren't linked to homelessness. Well, that's news to me.
No,
but please go ahead.
I'm suggesting that that we have different programs for different things, and you're conflating what the Auditor General actually said with everything else that we do. And I want to provide a few numbers to you so that you can have a better sense of actually the impact that these programs have. I think what the
we're
concern
short
of
on
the
time.
Auditor...
Can you just provide it to us in writing? And I guess what we're looking for is we were looking for
thought you wanted
accountability
answers to
and
your questions.
concrete results. Yeah, maybe you could just provide
If
them
you want
in.
a monologue, I can just stay out of it.
I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking, just table them because we're short of time.
But for you
We're
to ask a
looking for
question, you
results.
have
Like
to
the AG
listen
has
to
been
the answer,
very
right?
clear.
So,
Your departments with you today, you've spent all this money, but you don't know what results you're
I'm
getting.
actually trying to give
But
you the results, but
anecdotally,
you
when
won't
we
let
see
me.
the homelessness is through the roof. So
You won't let me give you the results. 87,000 people were prevented from entering homelessness because of our investments. Those are results. 46,000 people who were already experiencing homelessness were provided with permanent housing solutions through Reaching Home. That's results. I think what you're confusing with...
how are you measuring
If I may just
46,000 when
finish.
the Auditor General says your departments are
trying
not
to answer,
able
but
to?
you won't let
No, you're
me.
not
So I
answering.
guess
You're
you want a
giving me
monologue
numbers,
for your
Mr.
clips,
Hussain.
so go ahead, no problem.
Okay.
Point of order,
Gillis, and
just 1 second,
yeah.
Mr. McCauley.
If we could have the minister be able to finish
Well,
his answer.
it's there was a fair bit of interruption on both sides, so I'll turn things back over to Mr. McCauley. So,
Just
I didn't
quickly.
interrupt the honourable member, Mr. Chair. What I
Mr.
did was trying to...
Kelly, just Mr. McCauley.
I'll ask just one quick question, and then you can provide it. Like, can you provide to us? You mentioned 46,000. Provide to us, please, to this committee, where are you getting these numbers? Because obviously the Auditor General is saying your departments aren't able to say who you're helping, or if you're helping. So maybe say how you're coming to those numbers.
Certainly. Just to bring some context in, the Auditor General did this particular audit during the time of COVID. At that particular time, we had asked community entities, because they had asked during the emergency situation, not to report on data. Since then, the community entities that we fund have begun reporting on data. We've put a system in place for them to automate this, and so we have the data for the first 3 years of the program, which the minister quoted some of the results from that, but I can give actually more than that. 5,900 people got job training from that program.
It's
8,900
up or
got
down
new paid
since
employment.
2019.
Pardon me?
Is homelessness up or down across the country?
So we've done point-in-time counts in 55 communities, working with our community entities, and overall within the country, homelessness has increased. What we've published recently is 12%. So we do know that and that's not
with
unusual
all the work
coming out
you're
of a
doing,
time
why
of
is
crisis.
homelessness continuing? Like, are we just not getting the right results? Are we
So I think the philosophical problem here is that we're actually trying to do something about the problem. You don't even acknowledge that it exists. Your housing plan doesn't have the word homelessness in it. So how
this
can
is
you?
not-
How
this
can
is
you sit
about
there
your
and-
failures in your role, not myself as an
No,
opposition
but I'm trying
member.
to answer your question.
Homelessness
and I'm
is up
giving
12%.
you our results. You won't let me.
We would like results for the money, and I appreciate what you're trying to do, and I think you would like the same results. I think we all would.
Absolutely. So,
But
if
you're
you look
saying
at
you're spending all this money. Unemployment is up 12%,
let
but you're trying to blame me, a backbench opposition member. This
Pardon?
is on you.
no, and I'm trying to provide the results of the work that we've been doing over the years.
But we're not getting
and,
results.
And I gave you the numbers. One is 87,000 people prevented from joining homelessness, 46,000 people diverted away from homelessness into permanent housing. That's
Where's
results.
the problem coming from that we're up 12% then?
Mr. McCauley, that is your time. Turning now to the next member, Mr. Sitter, you have the floor for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Minister for taking the time to be with us here today. I know when I'm speaking to residents in my riding of Brampton East, there's concerns around housing for the most vulnerable, affordable housing. I know the Minister was just in Brampton East recently to announce affordable housing units in my riding. I know the Prime Minister was recently in Brampton to announce over $100 million for 300 units for those that are most vulnerable in Brampton. When you speak to women that are victims of domestic abuse, we need to be there for them, and I see that we are making progress on this. And so the progress that we're making is with our relationship with local municipalities and the provincial governments, because we know we alone at the federal government level cannot tackle this. And so, Minister, I'm hoping you can share some of your views on what your insights might be and how the federal government is working with other levels of government to help tackle this problem.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the honourable member for pointing out the success of our efforts, which is based on really trusting the communities. If you look at the over 5,000 projects delivered by over 1,000 community organizations across the country, we provide them the support, but they're the ones who are on the front lines providing these services, and these services are making a difference. I think what the Auditor General highlighted was that we need to do more work to enable those organizations to build the capacity to collect more granular data on the impact that they're having on the ground. But make no mistake, these programs are making a difference, and they particularly performed even better than expected during COVID. They saved a lot of lives by introducing health measures, by procuring more space, by procuring PPE and health professionals, and enabling people to actually stay safe during that really difficult time. So we will continue working with those grassroots organizations. As I said, they deliver 5,000 projects across the country. But we also have to have permanent housing solutions. And through programs like the Rapid Housing Initiative, we've been able to provide 100% capital funding to build deeply affordable homes for the most vulnerable, people either experiencing homelessness or people who are at risk of experiencing homelessness. We've been able to provide funding for the rapid construction of units, which are then supported through wraparound supports by other orders of government or other partners. So that model really works, and it has resulted in a lot of people being able to find deeply affordable homes and being taken off the streets.
Thank you, Minister. And you spoke about rapid deployment of housing, and I see from your advocacy efforts and your time meeting with local municipalities, with mayors of different cities across the country. Can you speak to how we're using innovation, or how local municipalities are using innovation with builders and contractors with prefabricated homes to get homes up faster?
Very good question. So I think a lot of this will be even encouraged further with the Housing Accelerator Fund. This is the first program in the National Housing Strategy that will directly invest in the systems changes that are necessary to unlock more housing supply, additional housing supply. So we will be investing directly in efforts to improve and speed up the permitting and delivery of housing of all types, including affordable housing, but also more rental housing and more home ownership options. And we will do that by partnering with municipalities and other orders of government that are responsible for the permitting and delivery of housing to help them get there, because we need more supply, and we need a healthier mix of housing, and we need more affordable housing. And to get there, we recognize that we're not the only partner in this, but we are ready and able to invest in the ability of and the capacity of local governments to do more.
Mr. Chair, do I have time for one more question?
You do. You've got a minute 30.
Okay, perfect. You know, when I'm traveling across the country and speaking to friends and family, I know I think there's a project, I think it was in downtown Toronto, with prefabricated housing, and it's something very unique where, you know, the zoning and some of the permitting processes take a long, long time. I know we're looking forward to seeing some of the technology through the Housing Accelerator Fund being used at the municipal levels through funding from the federal government, because we know there's a bottleneck there on the municipal side to get some of those permitting processes to be more efficient and more faster. And so I know a lot of my constituents are looking forward to that. But can you speak to some of the innovation that you've seen across the country?
Yeah, there is absolutely a lot of effort being made by local governments to speed up the permitting process, the delivery of housing, but also to adopt inclusionary zoning policies that will encourage more density and more a healthier mix of housing, but also focusing on transit-oriented development, building more densely around transit nodes, so that you take advantage of access to transit and other community services. And I think the Housing Accelerator Fund will definitely help with all those efforts that are already underway. If you look at recently, the City of Toronto passed a council resolution that basically allowed single-family homes to build up to 4 units in a multiplex fashion across the city as of right. That's a big step forward, and a number of other communities are taking similar approaches. And we need more housing supply in Canada. We have the fastest growing population in the G7. We have very low housing supply of all types, and we need to encourage that, and Housing Accelerator Fund will help us get there.
And thank you very much. That is the time. Maintenant, Madame Sinclair-Desgagnés, vous avez la parole.
Mrs. Sinclair-Desgagnés. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be quite brief because I have a motion that I'd like to table quickly. This is the motion that the committee requests that the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics forward to the committee all documents and correspondence received from Ms. Pascale Fournier, ex-president and CEO of the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation. Thank you. This will be sent, and we will address this motion on Monday. Mr. Truden? Thank you. Mr. Minister, hello. We see each other quite often these days. So I'm pleased to see you in person and to speak to you once again. It's hard to not talk about housing if we're talking about homelessness. We're trying to house people in Canada. There's a CMHC study that you quoted last Monday night at the committee when we were in the House, saying that in Canada between now and 2030 we need to build 3.5 million units to improve access. So this is a date from June. This is a study from June 2022. In this year's budget, there were investment for housing, Indigenous housing in the north, but there was no new money to increase the housing offer in Canada. So I imagine that when you received this 3.5 million housing units required, that's huge. Do you have a plan to face this housing deficit? Do you think we're going to reach this between now and 2030? If you'll allow me, I will respond to the question. The CMHC did produce a study saying that we needed 3.5 million housing units between now and 2030, extra housing units. We announced the Housing Accelerator Fund to produce 100,000 units. This was announced under the National Housing Strategy. I'd also like to tell you that we have built over 118,000 new units, and we've repaired 298,000. Now, I'd also like to say that 95% of the housing is Canada. is built by the private sector. So collectively, when we talk about this target, collectively, we need to build together. And this will include the 3 pillars of the government, including the private sector and companies. So this 100,000, this is over 10 years. You're going to build 100,000 units, but we need 3.5 million. Mr. Chair, it's 100,000 for the Housing Accelerator Fund, which is a 5 to 7 year period. One of the CMHC economists said even in Quebec we needed 1.1 million housing units, that the private sector will build 500,000. And so one way or the next, the private sector is not going to do the whole job. They're not going to build all of it. We know that they're going to build. The private sector is building everywhere, but this doesn't help us with regards to affordability. Your programs are not solving the affordability crisis. In Quebec, the private sector is going to build 500,000, and now the governments, all levels of government, have to work together to build 600,000 housing units just in Quebec to solve this accessibility issue. Is this where we're headed? Is there an extra plan? Is there another approach somewhere to face this issue head on? Right now, Canada is building approximately 200 housing units a year. We know that this is not enough to fill the demand and to keep housing affordable. That is why the 2022 budget presents measures that will allow us to double this number over the next decade. Over 14 billion in extra federal funding in order to create additional housing. How many, Mr. Minister? Sorry? How many units are going to build between now and 2030? You're going to double? How much is that? 3.5 million housing units in the next 10 years?
The private sector and our efforts, it's 3.5 million additional homes. And just to add to what Ms. Nadine said, the Housing Accelerator Fund, the 100,000 figure is just the immediate acceleration and the unlocking of that immediate. But the systems changes that the program will fund over 5 years is supposed to set Canada up for a doubling of the number of homes that we currently build. That's the plan. And the idea is that those systems changes will outlive the program.
Double. So the National Housing Council said that we built 115,000 since the beginning of the... So we need 3.5 million.
The 150,000 is the affordable housing, not all the homes. I think that's what you're referring to, correct?
No, not really, Mr. Minister. They're saying that we built 115,000 housing units, but for people having special needs or who are homeless, the majority of these units are not affordable. And this has no impact. So right now, the National Council, looking at the strategy, is saying that we are not getting anywhere. Are you going to change things?
The National Council said that, for example, they acknowledged that the Rapid Housing Initiative was the most affordable program. They also acknowledged that although the National Housing Co-Investment Fund is building affordable housing, they said it should go deeper than that. So they asked us to do more. They didn't say we're not doing anything. So let's be honest about this.
Et voilà, désolé, ça c'est tout.
I'm sorry, that's all for now. Mr. Desjardins, it's your turn. 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the Minister for being present with us and for the officials for also being present. It's quite a serious issue, and I'm sure that you're more than seized with this, and I have some particular questions that I hope that we can find an answer for, in particular the social conditions that we find people in. And so the Auditor General, when she came and gave us this report, of course, we were dismayed. You know, we don't like it when the Auditor General, the independent officer of Parliament, says our investments are not working. She mentioned in particular a concern that I had, which was, quote, this is from the report, When folks are cycling through chronic homelessness, they are constantly at the whims of bureaucratic processes that make them develop a lack of trust and exacerbates the issue. Houselessness or houseless folks do not have the capacity to go through tenuous systematic processes of paperwork and waiting because all of their energy is spent figuring out where their next meal would come from. So, Minister, this is the Auditor General who's describing a very serious fact, which is, yes, you can build stock, and I believe my colleagues have mentioned some of the realities in relation to this housing supply, and I do know that you're seized with trying to increase that housing supply, so I thank you for your hard work on that. The biggest problem I want to address with you today is to bring to light the real consideration that this is an ecosystem. Housing isn't a static thing. We don't have a static houseless population where it's, let's say, like Edmonton, 3,200 houseless folks. The number's increased very large in the last 5 years, and it's continuing to grow. This fact that the Auditor General mentions, which is that they have a distrust and they are unwilling to engage in the bureaucratic system that is CMHC and to actually get those results because of that mistrust. But that mistrust has also found its way into our systems. You know, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada calls for specific systematic changes to CMHC and to other areas within the Government of Canada that would see the ending of what produces houselessness. Minister Hussain, do you know what produces houselessness in this country?
There's a number of factors that contribute to homelessness in Canada, yes.
Would you agree that some of them perhaps are directly related to the outcomes and the situations that Indigenous people find themselves in
yes.
particular the trauma
Yes.
that they find themselves in, the 60s scoop, the residential schools?
Yes.
And so in my city, about 60% of the houseless population is Indigenous. It's a massive number, and it's continuing to grow. So given the fact that the reality is that they have a distrust of the federal government and a distrust of the services because of the inability for them to find support, they often don't even have an ID. And so I'll also speak to a real person in my community who's now passed on, and it was my birth mom. She was a houseless person for a period of her life, and it's because she was a victim of the 60s scoop. She was taken as a child, and she went through many homes, and she found herself on the streets of Edmonton. The Child and Family Services Ministry has produced houseless folks. Have you ever had a conversation with your colleagues, and in particular the Ministry of Indigenous Services Canada, to try to even address the reality that the numbers are increasing? Even if you increase the stock, the houseless population is increasing because the government's inaction on solving the issues related to child and family services. Do you recognize that as a problem?
Of course, family and child welfare services are, the systems around that are one of the pipelines into homelessness. But you do recognize that our government has done a lot of work in that space, although it's mainly a provincial matter, but we have taken that on. It is not true, as you say, that we're just building the homes. Reaching home is about the services. These are 5,000 projects that include employment supports, it includes counseling, it includes mental health supports, it includes addiction supports.
Do you think it's enough?
No, there's always more work to be done.
And that's the part, Minister, that I want to actually have your attention on. You know, you're going to hear from various members today, from your bench, of course. You're going to hear many good things and good questions. From the opposition, I've seen you challenge the official opposition in a way that I believe is not the most appropriate. They have really good questions. In particular, I want to find ways to actually get answers to the houseless community I represent. I represent thousands now of houseless people in Edmonton, and they want real answers. And the Auditor General has made clear that red tape, bureaucratic mistrust are barriers to ensuring that we actually see solutions in Edmonton, for example. What do you have to say to the houseless community in Edmonton that's growing? We've seen an increase in the houseless population. That's a fact. What do we say to those people, and what do you expect them to take away from our question today?
Just to go to the question on how do we support the homeless community better, the Reaching Home program is a transformational program that the government provides funding to communities.
Yeah, we got there. It's not enough, though, right?
Access.
And I really want to avoid this tactic of oftentimes the government ministries come here and say, look at what we've done. One, here at Public Accounts, our work is to ensure that we actually address the issues pointed out by the Auditor General. And she's saying that all the bureaucrats, the culture of CMHC and the ministry. It's the culture that is an issue.
There. These programs are
Right?
delivered by organizations on the ground, not by CMHC.
But I want to address the
So
gap.
let's
Talk about the gap, though.
No, but you. This is the second time you've talked about how the people on the street don't trust CMHC. These are 1,000 community organizations across the country who have credibility. No, but let me. I just want to correct something that you said. You said that.
Why won't you answer the question, Minister?
I'm trying
What
to
are you
answer.
going to say to the houseless people in Edmonton?
Mr. Desjardins, you're out of time. I will allow the minister to respond briefly.
I just want you to acknowledge that there's 5,000 community-owned projects that are delivered by 1,000 organizations on the ground, not by CMHC. And by the way, we do have a dedicated Indigenous homelessness stream delivered by Indigenous governments and communities. And we are already implementing a number of the recommendations of the Auditor General, including expanding coordinated access. So is there more work to be done? Absolutely. Is child and welfare services a pipeline to homelessness? For sure, and we have to deal with that. But to suggest that somehow CMHC is the bureaucratic entity that's delivering these services is not true.
And thank you very much. We will come back to you, Mr. Desjardins. Turning now to the start of our second round, there'll be 16 members. Pardon me, there'll be 6 members of various lengths of time questioning the minister. And when I said we'll deal with la motion de Madame Sinclair lundi, c'est le lundi après notre.
I meant Monday after the break week.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for coming. You are the lead or sole minister responsible for the national housing strategy for the Liberal government. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. So the results of this audit by the Auditor General, ultimately the responsibility of the performance rests with you.
Correct.
Thank you. I'd like to follow up on an earlier question. The CMHC annual report lists, in order for Canada to get to housing affordability, to essentially be out of this housing crisis, if I understand it correctly, 3.5 million houses need to be built by 2030. And if I heard you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said that will be done by 2030. Is that correct?
In collaboration with our partners, yes.
Right. So I'm curious as to how it's going to happen, because that's a little over 6 years from now. Last year, completed houses, new houses, or housing units built in Canada was 200,000, and that's about the average over the last few years. So in order for you to produce 3.5 million more houses by 2030, the completion rate's going to have to be 875,000 houses per year. 875,000. That's 675,000 more than we're completing now. So can you tell me how between this year and next year we will jump from 200,000 completed housing units to 675,000?
So the main point that I want to start off with is that housing is not just a federal responsibility. We have a role, we have a leadership role, we have a resource role to invest, we have a partnership role, but we're not the only players in this space.
And said through all those partnerships that we would get the 3.5 million. And I just don't see it, because that's basically a tripling of the annual completed houses here. So I don't think we're going to get there. And I don't see any path in this, particularly when you see the performance that the Auditor General has laid out in the performance of the National Housing Program here. For example, the Auditor General found that that in the program that finds housing placement or housing placement activities, that you've only reached 30% of the goal, and the goal has to be completed within the next year or so. In other words, in the next year or so, you have to find 94,000 new placements in order to actually be successful in that program. And you haven't come close to that in a single year. So the program's a failure. It says 31% is the target that you set for reducing chronic homelessness by next year. By next year. But by previous testimony just in this meeting, it's already gone up 12%. It hasn't gone down by 31%. You now have to reduce chronic homelessness by almost 50% in 1 year. So where is all this money going? It's going in, but no results are coming out.
Chronic homelessness and homelessness in general are two different things. What we've committed to doing is cutting chronic homelessness in half by 2027, 2028, and then eliminating chronic homelessness by 2030. That's our focus. Of course, our programs and the 5,000 projects that I mentioned are available to anyone who's either experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness. The Rapid Housing Initiative, same thing. But the key to our focus is chronic homelessness. For example, even among veteran
This is
populations.
so effective that it's going up. It's not going down. So it's going up. It's going the wrong way. And you've spent $138 million or $1 million already. I think that's a number or something more than that on this, and it's not going anywhere. It's going the wrong way. So tell me how in the next year, because 31% is the target you set by next year, how it's going to go from increasing by 12% down 31% in the next year. Because that's what the Auditor General report says is your target.
Okay, so first of all,
next year
we had a once in a lifetime event called the pandemic that we went through, and I'm glad that our investments were able to save lives among people experiencing homelessness. They were able to get more PPE, they were able to get more spaces, they were able to procure.
There before COVID. COVID is not the reason that homelessness continues to go up.
Well, you know, look, I mean, I'm trying to finish my answer, but I'll just end by saying we recognize that it's a problem. We are committed to a program to end chronic homelessness. You don't even have homelessness in your plan. You have a housing plan that doesn't even have the word homelessness.
And that is the time. And that is the time, gentlemen. That is the time. That is the time, Mr. Perkins. That is the time, Ms. Yip. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming. And I have to say that it's not usual to have a minister come to public accounts, so I thank you for coming and answering our questions. In my riding of Scarborough Agincourt, we have one of the last remaining pandemic-started shelters. It has 350 units. What can be said to some of the residents and businesses that have been impacted by the shelter? And at the same time, others are concerned about the state of homelessness.
I think it's important to recognize that when people are taken off the street and are provided permanent housing solutions, they tend to do better. They restart their lives. They have stability. Their health improves. They're able to go back to work or go back to school or pursue, a business opportunity and so on. It's not only better for that community, but it's better for all of us because those individuals tend to have much less interactions with the criminal justice system, with the law enforcement system, with the healthcare system. So overall, as a society, not only is it the humane and proper thing to do to house homeless individuals, but it's also better for our long-term fiscal framework. In other words, society does better when we are all doing better. And so, and by the way, those shelters are supposed to be a temporary solution. They're not meant to be a permanent housing solution for those individuals, but they're necessary. They're supposed to be a stage in a continuum of providing permanent housing eventually for individuals. And that's why I think the Rapid Housing Initiative, which has, by the way, delivered a number of really good, affordable units in Scarborough, that's why it's so effective, because it gives people the next stage of permanent housing beyond shelters. And the last time I was in Scarborough to announce a rapid housing project, the neighborhood initially had some concerns, but they came around because they realized that, and it was particularly rapid housing units dedicated to men experiencing, who had addictions and mental health challenges. They recognized that these men, this population of people who were sleeping on the street, were better off in permanent housing with the right supports around them, and that not only was it better for them, it was also better for the community.
In the report, there was some mentions of challenges of data collection. Could you speak to that? Or maybe another associate?
Thank you for the question. During the time of the audit, it was during the COVID period, the nonprofit organizations in the homeless serving sector were dedicated to saving the lives and protecting the health of those clients that they were serving and could not actually provide the data at that time. Since that time, they've started to recoup in providing us data and working with us on the data collection. So we've done point-in-time counts with 55 communities across the country. And by the fall of this year, they will be completely caught up in their cycle of reporting on data and have already started reporting up to 22 on the results that they've achieved, which gets back to the 5,000 projects that we've talked about, the 87,000 people who are prevented from becoming homeless, the 46,000 people who are placed in permanent housing, as well as a number of other supports like job training, new paid employment, education, temporary placements. So those are all some of the differences that this particular program has made. And we've been able to work with now community entities. We have 60 of them across the country that we fund, and 43 of them have put coordinated access in place where they have no wrong door. For the clients that they're serving, they can go to one place and they can be provided all of the services that they need, and that particular community entity will find the right support for them to be able to help their trajectory in life. And so that is making a big difference in communities right now.
One of the recommendations was to finalize the implementation of the online reporting platform. Can you, has this been done, and could you tell us a bit more what this is all about?
So thank you very much. That particular platform was put in place in the fall of last year, and that is a system now that community entities can use in a very efficient way to give us the results in a timely way. So that's how we've collected the data on the 5,000 projects. And so that is a way that now community entities can save time and energy and effort and direct their capacity to actually serving the clients, but at the same time being accountable and transparent for the difference that they're making in their communities. And so that particular system is now in place, effective, and being used and reported on.
Chair, do I have?
Time for the question, yes.
Okay. I know, Minister, you've touched upon working with the municipal government. How about the provincial governments?
We are ready and actually indeed do work with all orders of government, and we welcome those partnerships. We through the National Housing Strategy, for example, we fund provincial priorities, which include, for example, money, federal money to help provinces maintain and renew and rejuvenate their community housing stock and build new units. But in terms of homelessness, I think the Rapid Housing Initiative is a good example of where the federal government provided the 100% capital, and then the provinces, or in some cases, the particular nonprofit or the municipality provided the wraparound supports for people who were given permanent housing solutions who were experiencing homelessness.
Et merci beaucoup. Et Madame.
Thank you, Mrs. Sinclair Desgagnés. 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the Minister for being here today. Yesterday, my husband came back. He works as a supply teacher, and he was telling me that he participated in the teachers were doing a collect. They were collecting money for the mother of 2 children so that she could pay her rent, because her rent went up so much that she can't even pay rent. And she's a staff at the school. She's not even able to pay her own rent. And they had to pass a hat. I'm hearing you talk about increasing by millions, huge objectives, but for this lady who today is not able to pay her rent, of course, maybe she's not paid enough, and especially maybe that's a provincial issue. But Mr. Minister, you have a tool, and one of these tools is the creation of an acquisition fund. The acquisition fund, we've been suggesting this as an idea, was used in some provinces, and so you need to take housing units out of the private sector and offer them at an affordable rate. This is something concretely that you could do today, not in 3, 5, 7 years, today. What do you think about this idea of creating an acquisition fund, a fund from the federal government? We are investing already $454.3 million to fund 145,000 households in Quebec, providing monthly help through our agreement with Quebec on for the Canada Housing benefit, and we're trying to provide this, and we're providing this supplement of $500 to these families and eligible families. This will be sent to 1.8 million Canadians, including 467,000 households in Quebec. Are you doing follow-up? Are you doing a follow-up to these numbers? Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Desjardins, you have the floor for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do, absent of the, we've got no information. Last round I questioned you about this. You had no advice for the houseless community in Edmonton that's growing. I spoke to the mayor of Edmonton, and he spoke to me that you, the Prime Minister, and the Deputy Prime Minister met with the City of Edmonton. You committed to a project. They forwarded me the correspondence of that request, and then they were systematically denied. What do you have to say to the City of Edmonton, who supplied many, many shovel-ready projects, and many of these would go directly to supporting people in my community, but just a month and a half ago were denied?
First of all, I would say that I did provide as many answers as possible to the previous round, so I reject that assertion. In terms of Edmonton, we've invested in all the 3 rounds of the Rapid Housing Initiative. We were able to select Edmonton as one of the cities that would receive money under the city stream of the Rapid Housing Initiative, and also the project stream. So I expect the 3rd round will be exactly the same. So we have a good record of collaboration and support to Edmonton. Same goes for
I just mentioned that the City of Edmonton came to me, your former colleague, and they said that they were disappointed that they weren't able to receive a positive response from their... Excuse me, Minister, I'm just going to finish my sentence. Minister, please. They told me they were unable to have a positive response following your commitment. And so I'll leave that for now, and hopefully you can provide a response to us in writing to this committee in a future date. So I'll move on to my next question.
But please provide
so you've been
details.
able to speak. I've asked you what advice you had for the houseless community. You said, one, jurisdiction is not your problem.
Is that possible? You could provide that?
You would have to provide details about the project. I don't know what project the member is referring to. I'm happy to support
the City of Edmonton's Ending Houselessness Plan.
Okay.
They have one. It's been 10 years. You can respond to it. You should know about this, which is shocking.
I do about all.
But I'll now move.
Gentlemen,
you have to provide details.
Through me, I appreciate it, but I try to minimize the back and forth as much as possible. Mr. Desjardins, you have about 40 seconds left, so I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, so you mentioned jurisdiction as one of your defenses today. That's not all your problem. You said that you're doing enough, but the reality is, Minister, you have to recognize that people are dying of houselessness in Canada. We had 46 deaths in the City of Edmonton, one of the highest recorded deaths of houselessness in this country, and it happened. Do you take any responsibility for the fact that these programs aren't, in fact, touching the lives of the people who need it most? And that's not my words. That is the report of the Auditor General, that the ministry didn't have knowledge of who it was serving, and that at times could not identify whether or not the programs had matched the results to those who needed it most.
And that is your time, Mr. Desjardins, but I will allow the Minister to answer, please.
First of all, I never said that we've done enough. I clearly said that we've done a lot, but there's more work to be done. Number one. Number two, our programs are impacting people. The Auditor General pointed to a lack of adequate data from the organizations. We're working with them to get that data and to better report.
Thank you very much. Turning now to Mr. Perkins, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in order to save time, Minister, could I ask for you or your team to table a couple of things just in writing? Section 5.9 of the Auditor General's report lists 6 metrics for the National Housing Strategy. I'm wondering if you could provide to the committee in writing the progress to date on the numbers, the metrics that you use for that, where we are in achieving that progress, if you could. Is that okay? In writing?
Yeah, I'll confirm at the end, Mr. Perkins.
Okay.
Just
and then the second one is, could you provide the committee also in writing the administrative cost for each of these programs by a percentage of the overall budget? Okay, thank you.
That's it?
No, I've got more questions.
No, I know you do, but that's it for your question. I just want to confirm, is that possible that your team could provide that to the committee? Yes, I'm seeing, yes. Thank you, appreciate it. Mr. Perkins, you have just over 4 minutes now. The floor is yours.
Thank you. One of the metrics that is in your program is the National Housing Co-Investment Strategy, which deals with this issue of what's an affordable place to rent. And I think if I read the program correctly, it's trying to help people who find accommodation that is 20% or less, low-income people, so that their accommodation is 20% or less of their income. And when I look at the Auditor General's analysis on page 22 of his report, and it's got a nice graphic here, but it also has a chart that basically shows that in not a single province is that program, or is it delivering housing that's below 20% of costs. And in my province, Nova Scotia, where the low-income the average that is set out by the Auditor General is a little over $22,000. So the way it works out in his formula is that would, to be below 20%, would have to be rent of $560 a month. And I can tell you from the largest town in my riding, Bridgewater, if you can find a place, a one-bedroom apartment in that town above a pizza shop on the main street, it would be about $1,200 a month. So while you're spending the money, I'm not seeing the evidence that it's actually helping people with income of less. In fact, the Auditor General says it isn't, that basically it's not helping those in that critical low-income area. It may be helping people with a little bit higher income who can afford some of these apartments, but it's not helping those who are in lower income. I wonder if you could comment just quickly on that part of it.
Thank you for the question, Mr. President. I wanted to speak, I think the question was relating to co-investment fund, and I do want to say that the affordability level of this program is around 80% of the medium market rent. And at this point in time, this program is actually overachieving its affordability. The way it's structured, it actually is at 59% of medium market rent income.
Thank you. Could you table that information, the details on that, because that's different. It appears different to me than what the Auditor General is saying. So I'd like to ask the Minister again, if I could, and it was a question we asked in Committee of the Whole this week, but I think given your testimony today, you probably have a different answer. Do we have a housing affordability crisis?
Mr. Chair, I keep hearing the opposition kind of trying to get these sound bites without really even acknowledging.
It's not a sound bite, Minister. It's a simple question.
I'm trying to answer the question, if I may.
Well, you can without the political chatter. This is a Public Accounts Committee. Your job is to be accountable for what
Mr. Perkins, you are burning your time.
I know I am. I've got a clock running.
Let me know when I can answer your question.
The floor is yours.
Because you've been interrupting me.
I'd like to hear an answer for a change on whether we have a housing crisis or not.
So can I answer your question? Or
I don't know if you can, but
me?
you're certainly free to try.
Okay, I will answer your question if you stop interrupting me. The fact of the matter is the fundamental difference between you and your party and the rest of us here is you don't believe in Canadians' right to housing, a basic human right.
Not actually true.
No, actually,
that's
you
not
don't.
actually true.
You don't.
That's not actually
I
true.
asked you
And
that
you're to be accountable
throughout the
for
night,
your actions.
you refused
here.
to answer.
That's
all of
your
you.
job is to
you
be
never
accountable for your job.
accepted that
Read
Canadians
the
have
open
a
and
right,
accountable
a
government
human right to
mandate
housing.
letter to
Order.
which
Never
is to be
ordered.
accountable. To be
Gentlemen,
accountable to parliamentary committees and answer questions. Your job's not to ask me questions.
Mr.
it's to
Perkins,
answer
this applies to you
questions.
as well. I appreciate your frustration. I'm going to give the last 15 seconds, Mr. Hussein, to answer. I would ask, Minister, that you try to avoid describing the Conservative opposition policy. I recognize you have points to make on that, but we are here to hear from your department.
No, absolutely. But
Thank
I'm
you.
also
Oh,
able
and do you
to
have a point of
answer
order?
the
All right,
question.
sorry, Mr. Fragaskatos, go ahead.
It's very simple. Let's just simply allow time for answers. That's all.
That's what I'm endeavoring to do, sir, so I appreciate it. Over to you, Minister.
Mr. Chair, I think I can figure out how to answer questions, and I appreciate your help, but I don't need it. Thank you very much.
Do you have a response?
No, I made my response. Thank you.
Another point
Very
of order,
good.
Chair. Another point of order.
Mr. Fragaskatos, there's better be a point of order
It is
because
my-
the witness is not exactly responding to the answers, and taking shots at the chair
I
is
did
not
respond.
helping your situation.
No,
I try to
I just said
try to
I
run
don't
these
need your
meetings
help.
fairly, sir, and suggesting that when I give you time and you don't take it and you don't have the time is frankly insulting to this committee. So, Mr. Fragaskatos, what is your point of order?
Well, it's my right to raise a point of order as I
It
wish,
is,
Mr. Chair.
and I'm hearing you.
And it's simply a call for decorum, and that is in your hands to officiate.
Yes, it is.
And I think that opposition members in particular today need a reminder on the need for decorum.
I agree with you, and I would say the same is true of this minister. You have the floor your side. Who is up next? Ms. Bradford, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I have some questions for CMHC. The CMHC reported that as of the 31st of March 2022, over $9 billion had been committed to the 6 initiatives examined by the OAG, and some $4.5 billion had been spent, representing about 30% and 15% of planned expenditures, respectively. Why is the actual spending such a small share of the planned spending, and how do you plan to correct that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. What we report on our Place to Call Home is the amount that has been spent to date. The way that we are reporting or accounting for these expenditures are following accounting standards, international accounting standards, which state that we need to recognize when the building has been completed and finished, and as we progress and advance the funds. And in multi-unit residential, even shelters, it does take 5 to 8 years to complete a project. And so, as you can see, we are 5 years into the National Housing Strategy, and what you see on record is what has been spent given the level of completion of projects.
Thank you for that. So Exhibit 5.4 of the report shows that chronic homelessness was 11.3% higher in 2019 to 20 than the 2016 baseline. Well, the target is a 31% decrease by 2023 to 2024 and a 50% decrease by 2027-28. To have a chance of achieving this goal, chronic homelessness would need to fall by 38% between 2020 and 2024 and by 55% between 2020 and 2028. How does CMHC plan to reverse the trend and achieve these targets?
Thank you very much for the question. So when we look at the targets for homelessness, one of the main factors is actually working with our community entities across the country. We have 60 community entities plus a number of community entities in Quebec, as well as working with the territories. They are implementing something we're called coordinated access, which is a transformational change in the way that they serve the homeless serving people in their communities, which is about no wrong door, and for them to make a difference. So we've seen, for example, in Dufferin, 50% reduction since they put coordinated access in place. So it is about coming together as a community and aligning programs and services to be able to serve that homeless serving sector, which wasn't happening before. And so when this particular audit begun, it was in its initial creation of this particular program and the transformation going on within the homeless serving sector and communities across the country. And then COVID hit. So that was a drastic change for them to just save lives and protect people. And now communities are coming back to be able to implement coordinated access. You'll see in the report at the time, we only had 9 communities that had coordinated access. Now we have 43, and the last 17 are on track, and we're working with them, as well as the Canadian Alliance for Ending Homelessness, to be able to have them implement coordinated access. And we know, as we look at international best practices, this is an international best practice that does make a difference in communities.
Thank you. So this may be a somewhat related question. So according to the OAG's recommendation 5.74, the CMHC and Infrastructure Canada should engage with central agencies to clarify accountability for the achievement of national housing strategy targets to eliminate gaps. In response to that recommendation, CMHC was to clarify and define federal accountability for the national housing strategies target to reduce chronic homelessness by 50% by 2027-28. Was the organization responsible for the achievement of the target identified?
Thank you very much for the question. So CMHC, when this particular audit was done, the transition from CMHC coming in and working with Infrastructure Canada and the homelessness policy and programs had just moved into Infrastructure Canada. That has been clarified under the Minister's direction. Infrastructure Canada is responsible for homelessness policy and program reaching home. But as the Minister has already outlined, that can't be done without partnerships. So we do know to actually make a difference in homelessness, the partnership we have with CMHC, the partnership we have with provinces and territories, and we have seen a number of provinces and territories recently issue homelessness strategies very much aligned and working with us to make a difference. And we've recently created a working group with all provinces and territories on support of housing and homelessness, again, to align and make a difference. Because we all know that to actually make a real impact on people's lives, it is done at a local level with all orders of government, the homeless serving sector, and civil society working together.
Thank you. I'm afraid that is the time. I do have a request. I'm looking for let me deal with this first, Mr. Desjardins. A request looking for unanimous consent to give Mr. Morris 2.5 minutes to question the minister. He'll be our last questioner. Is that acceptable? If
he brought donuts.
I hear no dissension. Mr. Morris, you have the floor for 2.5 minutes, please.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thanks to the committee for that. I want to start by sharing in my community, as I've shared with the minister before, homelessness has not gone up by 12%. It's gone up by 300%. Our last point-in-count study in 2018 was just over 300 people. And 2021, that same point-in-count study led to over 1,000 people. And so I wonder if I could ask for a document to be tabled from officials with this 12% figure, if that could be tabled to the committee. Yep, great, thank you. Secondly, I want to just follow up on a question I asked of the minister on Monday night with respect to definitions, because the definition of affordability is very important. In fact, one of the recommendations from the Auditor General, 5.62 on page 33, take the necessary steps to align the definitions of affordability for all initiatives so that they are consistent, recognizing that for the co-investment fund, for example, the definition being used is not 30% of income, it's this 80% of market rent. And it's only 30% of the units have to be 80% of market rent. And so my question is, if the minister would commit, or if actions have already been taken because the report came out back in November, to aligning the definitions as the Auditor General called for, and ideally for that definition to be the 30% income definition and not this 80% of market rent.
So I think before I turn it to the officials, different programs have different levels of affordability attached to them because they target different people. So when you look at, for example, the Rental Construction Financing Initiative, that's the program that talks about 80% of market, whereas Co-Investment Fund is explicitly talking about 30% or less of household income.
Okay, thank you. So if that's the case, Minister, do you disagree with the recommendation from the Auditor General?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. So we do have one definition of affordability under the National Housing Strategy, and it is 30% of household income spent on housing. When it comes to affordability requirement on our specific program, it is a function of, as Minister stated, who we're supporting, as well as the way that the program has been constructed between contributions and loans. Our DBEST program is the Rapid Housing Initiative that is 100% contribution, and it is a function of the requirement of affordability is based on 30% of income.
And so last, Minister, at a time when homelessness is tripling, and the Auditor General is saying to use one consistent definition, would you not agree that it would be best to ensure that all funds go to the lowest income people who need those funds the most?
Well, the question suggests that, for example, then we shouldn't purposely build rentals for police officers, for paramedics, for teachers, people who are being increasingly priced out of our rental markets in the cities that they work in. So we have to have a national housing strategy that, yes, focuses a lot on the most vulnerable, but we also need more rental supply. And part of our CFI is about doing that and building more rental supply, and also putting some affordability there, not as deep as, for example, the Rapid Housing Initiative. So you have to have a national housing strategy that meets the needs of Canadians in different parts of the housing spectrum. It's difficult to say that, people who work in our cities who are being priced out of the rental market also don't need help with rentals, and that's what we're trying to do.
Mr. Morris, I'm afraid that is the time.
To table a document?
Pardon me?
Just to table a document related to this question?
Sure, if you want to ask about a document being tabled, I'll allow that, but not a question. So, not an additional question. We'll go ahead.
Thank you for your generosity. If I could just have a list of any projects that have been funded through the National Co-Investment Fund that did not meet the definition of requiring 80% over the next 20 years. 30% of units need to be 80% market rent. Any list of projects funded that do not meet that definition over the coming 20 years?
We will provide that. And short answer, it's part of the design of the program. It is a requirement.
Très bien. Merci beaucoup. Before I excuse the witness, Mr. Digital, you have a point of order?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we oftentimes, as mentioned by our member across the way, the requirement for decorum, and I believe that requirement also implies to the witnesses, Mr. Chair, that come present to us. And although I appreciate the answers of the Honourable Minister, I do believe his conduct in relationship to his challenging of you, our chair of this committee, is unacceptable. And so, Mr. Chair, I believe that the committee I would agree to ensure that we hopefully could assist you in your request for an apology.
So this is not something I really want to get into too long. Look, Minister, I have done everything I can to ensure that the proceedings run smoothly. I did find your comments directed to me somewhat disrespectful, and when you disrespect the chair, you're disrespecting the committee. Is this something you would care to address?
Mr. Chair, I didn't intend to disrespect you. I was trying to say that I was finished with my answer. It was not directed towards you, and if it came across like that, I do apologize.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. You're all excused. I appreciate your time. I will say as well, Minister, as some of the government members said, it is uncommon for this committee to hear from ministers. So we do appreciate you coming before us today, answering our questions. We appreciate it. And on that, I'll bid you adieu and thank you very much. We'll see you in the House at some point. On that, I will suspend for a few minutes so we can go in camera.
you.